Wimbledon starts today, and as far as the ATP is concerned, it's just an exhibition. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. JR is the producer, and he has uploaded the full lesson to plainenglish.com/480. Coming up today, the Wimbledon tennis tournament traces its roots to 1877 and is considered the most prestigious tennis tournament in the world. But this year, the governing body of tennis isn't giving players any points for their performance in Wimbledon. And it's just one example of how sports organizations are grappling with how to respond to political developments. In the second half of today's lesson, I'll show you how to use the phrasal verb hand out, and we have a quote of the week. Let's get going. Tennis and golf are unique in the sporting world because they are individual and not team sports. Tennis and golf players are in charge of their own careers. They don't have a boss, and they don't have a contract. They can't be traded. Nobody can tell them when to play or when not to play. They are their own bosses. Both these sports typically have few governance issues and few controversies. The controversies around other sports, player safety, gambling, political messaging, foreign team ownership, corruption, these controversies have typically not touched tennis and golf. But this year, both sports are caught up in major political controversies. In tennis, the Wimbledon tournament starts today, June 27th. There will be no players from Russia or Belarus. That's the result of a tournament rule this year in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Wimbledon was under pressure from the UK government to either ban Russian and Belarusian players or make them sign a statement renouncing the war. The tournament believed that making players sign statements opposing the war could put players or their families in danger with their home governments. So Wimbledon decided not to allow any players from Russia or Belarus to compete in 2022. That didn't sit well with the ATP, the Association of Tennis Professionals. The ATP is the closest thing to a governing body of tennis. It's like FIFA, only for tennis players. The ATP gives each player ranking points for their performance in tournaments throughout the year. For example, this year, Rafael Nadal won the French Open. He got 2,000 points. Norwegian Casper Ruud came in second place. He got 1,200 points. The players who were knocked out earlier got even fewer points. The four Grand Slam tournaments award the most points in total. Behind them are several other tiers of tournaments that provide different amounts of points. So when you hear someone say that Novak Djokovic is the number one tennis player in the world, it means that he currently has the most ranking points in the ATP based on how he has done in the tournaments in the previous 12 months. You can see how the ATP thought that the whole ranking points system this year would be unfair. As a Grand Slam event, Wimbledon is one of 4 events to provide the biggest points value in the player rankings. So let's take the case of Russian Daniil Medvedev, currently number 2 in the world. He's not allowed to participate in Wimbledon. But if all his competitors participate, he would be pushed down the rankings because his peers would win points while he could not. Now, you might be asking why this is important. Does it really matter how the players are ranked? Well, the answer is yes. The ATP rankings determine a lot about the game off the court. For example, not every tennis player can play in every tournament. So tournaments determine who's allowed to play based on the ranking points. If you have more points, you'll get into tournaments that pay better and give more exposure. What's more, the tournament seeding also depends on ranking points. The seeding is about a player's position in the tournament structure. The fewer the points, the worse your position in the tournament structure, and the harder it is to win. Both of these factors mean that losing ranking points can have a real impact on a player's season and earnings. So, the ATP decided that in the interest of fairness, if Russian players aren't allowed to play in Wimbledon, and if Russian players don't have the chance to win those valuable points, then nobody will win the points. In short, the ATP stripped Wimbledon of its ability to award points this year. Wimbledon will still happen. It will still be on television. There will still be a trophy. There will be prize money handed out. But none of the players in this year's tournament will earn any ATP points. As far as official tennis is concerned, Wimbledon is just for fun this year. This was a big disruption to the relative calm of professional tennis. Wimbledon is one of 4 major events, and it has been punished by the sport's governing body. Tennis players generally opposed Wimbledon's move to disallow Russian and Belarusian players, but so far, nobody has pulled out of Wimbledon as a form of protest. Most players will still go to Wimbledon anyway because they want the exposure, the prestige, and, let's face it, a shot at the money. Now, if you think the controversy in tennis is bad, just wait until you hear what's going on in golf. I'll tell you about that next week. Wimbledon, the tournament, was under pressure to do this from the British government, so I don't think you can blame Wimbledon. Should you blame the UK, though? Other sports have banned Russia and Belarus from participating. In football, Russia was banned from the UEFA Championships and can't compete in the World Cup. International ice hockey canceled a tournament scheduled to be in Russia. Russian figure skaters were excluded from figure skating championships. Formula One also pulled out of Russia. There's no great place to draw the line, but if I had to choose, here's what I would say. Definitely don't hold events in a sanctioned country like Belarus or Russia. Exclude a national team playing under the country's flag, like a football team. But yes, let an individual athlete compete as himself or herself, but keep the sanctioned country's name and flag off the graphics and out of official publications and announcements. That's what I would do if I were in charge of all of this. Today's English expression is a phrasal verb, hand out. I'm going to show you 2 ways to use hand out today. There are other ways, but we'll focus on these 2 today. In both of the meanings we'll discuss today, someone is giving something to a lot of other people. We were talking about the ATP's decision not to award ranking points to the Wimbledon tennis tournament this year. But I clarified that Wimbledon will still happen. Players will still go, it will be on television, there will be a trophy, and money will be handed out. Money will be handed out. The tournament will hand out money to the players. In this case, hand out means to give a share or a piece of a whole to a lot of people. In total, Wimbledon will hand out 40.3 million British pounds, or the equivalent of 50.5 million US dollars. That means Wimbledon will give a total of 40.3 million pounds to many people. Each person will get a share of the total. However, the most common way to use hand out is to give something identical to everyone. A few times a year, the management company in my office hands out snacks in the lobby. They hand out snacks to all the employees who work in the building. This is not my company. This is the owner of the building. They hand out snacks in the lobby. That means they give snacks to everyone. They give a little bit of the same thing to everyone. Do any of you go to conferences or conventions? If you go to a typical business conference, people are handing stuff out all day long. If you walk around enough, you'll get branded water bottles, keychains, pens, and more pens, notebooks, flash drives, portable chargers, all kinds of stuff. Companies hand this stuff out because they want you to go home with something that has their name and logo on it. They hand this stuff out. They give one to everyone who will take it. I don't know what it's like in school these days, but when I was in school, teachers would hand papers out all the time. They would give one copy of the paper to everyone in the class. The act of giving or distributing something is to hand it out. So often, the teacher would ask for a volunteer, and she would give that volunteer a stack of papers and say, "Please hand this out to everyone." That means, please distribute these. Please give one of these to everyone. So these have all been good things. Who doesn't want a free snack, a worksheet, a branded flash drive? But here's a headline I saw. Police handed out 56 tickets in a seatbelt enforcement push. That means they stopped people passing on the street to check if they were wearing their seatbelts as the law requires. Most people were wearing seatbelts, but 56 unlucky people were not wearing seatbelts, and the police handed out tickets to anyone who was not following the law. Here's a great quote for you. Before I tell you the quote, formal education means education in a classroom, like going to school, high school, university, whatever. That's formal education. So here's the quote from Jim Rohn. He was an entrepreneur. He said, "Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune." Great. Well, this seems like as good a time as any to remind you about Plain English Plus. And that's the best way to extend what you're learning in plain English, to become more of an active learner. You'll find exercises, in-depth videos, live conversation calls, writing practice, and more. Check that all out at plainenglish.com/plus, Plus. And remember, self-education will make you a fortune. Well, that's all for today. Almost the end of June already, halfway through 2022. Have a fantastic week, and remember, we'll be back here on Thursday with a new lesson topic. See you then.